Good morning. Good morning. Welcome, everybody, to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host, Samantha Studebaker Carl, and I'm here with my good friend, Catherine. And today we are talking about what chapter is this? This is sorry, I can't remember the chapter number. I know that we are talking about love language number 5, which is physical touch. And chapter number 7, that's what we're talking about. Oh, I lost my screen. Hold on. There we are. Okay. And I completely lost my train of thought now. Where am I? I am off in La La Land. So for those of you who are watching, if you want to share your thoughts below this video about how unorganized I am this morning, feel free to do that because I'm losing my mind. There's Sandy. Good morning, Sandy. So I guess she's not quite there yet. Okay, no problem. Anyway, we're talking about physical touch and love language, and the book that we're talking about, which is called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman, and we've been talking about this for a little while. Last week we discussed quality time. I think that's what it was. Or is that right? I don't know. This week is just a crazy week. I've been like all over the place with everything in my life, and I don't know about you guys, but it's thrown me off my game a little bit. But before we get into any kind of deep conversation, why don't we introduce ourselves? I'm Samantha, obviously. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. Anybody else want to jump out and say hey?
Hi, this is Catherine in Boulder, Colorado. Not sure. This should be interesting because I don't think any of us have this as a primary love language. Even close, like at least in the middle, if not in the lower portion of mine. I know that.
Are you there, Sandy, or are you just listening in today? Well, maybe Sandy will jump on in a minute. Whenever you're ready. Sandy's down in Miami, Florida. You shouldn't be getting hit by hurricane stuff. That's all in the South Carolinas. And by the way, for anybody who is down there in the Carolinas, North Carolina, South Carolina, the whole East Coast pretty much, I hope you're all doing okay. I hope you got out when you could. And I know there's a lot of people that are still there and struggling with this hurricane business. And so I hope everybody's doing okay. I was lucky. My daughter, she actually got out, and she's in Southwest Georgia right now. So she and her family are safe. I'm glad of that. But her boyfriend's family is still down there, and they're riding this mess out. So hopefully they're okay. But anyway, let's get back to our topic of discussion: physical touch and the love language of touching. And this chapter is really interesting, how the book versus the audio version, because I got the audio version and that's mostly what I listened to, but it was written earlier on, and then the book version is more updated. And so there's some things they leave out. And in this particular chapter, it runs the gamut between, at least in the audio version, he discusses Freud and his thoughts on physical touch all the way up through, another, like some kind of a study that was done in more recent history, relationship-wise and regarding physical touch and sexuality and all of that. So, I mean, this whole chapter runs the gamut on just touching in general to sexuality, and then appropriate and inappropriate touching and all of that. So there's a lot in this chapter. So I don't know. I mean, part of it, I was sitting here looking at this chapter and I'm going, okay, I'm not a big touchy-feely kind of a person, and so it's not my primary love language, but I kind of like looked over my life. I like to examine my own life, and I touch more often than what I probably used to. And, even in my work life and whatnot, I see somebody who's not feeling all great and wonderful, they're acting like they're just kind of down, and I just want to give them a hug. Of course, I don't just rush right up and hug somebody because they may not want the hug, but I do have that kind of, I don't know, desire to transfer my calming, peaceful, happy energy over to someone else, and I don't know how else to do it other than that. I don't know if that makes sense, but of course I always ask, do you want a hug? And if they do, then I give them a hug, and if they don't, then obviously I don't. I give them a pat on the back or a high five or something like that. Hey Bill, how's it going?
It's going well. I'm getting
Good.
ready to go over to the gym to do my workout. So.
Oh, awesome. Well, this week is our chapter on the physical touch and the touchy-feely one. So maybe you'll have something to add to that, because I
Sure.
know you said that that is your primary love language. So
Yes, it is.
awesome.
And I will, but I'm going to mute out, and so I'll just listen. And
Okay. Sounds good.
okay.
Okay, awesome. Okay, I just got a message from Sandy, and she says, I'll be on soon, finishing up with a patient. Awesome. Okay, cool. So, where was I on that? Touching in the workplace and that kind of thing, as far as, transferring my energy to another person, that's one way I feel like it's a way of doing that. I don't know. Anybody have any thoughts? Catherine, I know Sandy's not with us yet because she's busy, but Catherine, what do you think here at the beginning of this chapter?
I think it's interesting how important touch is to some people and how unimportant it is to other people. Like, it starts out in the beginning of this chapter talking about how we're all human and we all crave physical touch, and that babies don't, basically develop properly if they don't receive physical touch. And I know when I worked in the unit with babies, it was very important, like I held them a lot and loved on them a lot. And there are a lot of studies, especially around like orphanages and things like that, where the kids, especially the babies, don't get that love and that touch, and they don't develop into, I don't know, normal, whatever the hell normal is, people. Maybe that's what happened to me. I don't know, because like physical touch, like I would give it to the babies, but other than that, and I hug people. Like, I'm not absolutely opposed to it, but I don't need it either, and I don't crave it, and I resent it when I have to give it when I don't feel it, And it's interesting. Maybe I just don't love anybody. I don't know. Like, because it's interesting how, there's a case study in the book where the lady is not and the man is. And so she loves him enough to learn how to express, be more physical. As is with all of these love languages, this book's premise is that if you love somebody enough, you're going to make the effort to do whatever it is they need. And I don't know, maybe I wasn't cuddled as a child or something, because it just seems like bullshit to me in a way to just fake your way through everything, If it's not sincere, then I don't see how it can be a true expression of love.
Yeah, I get that, Catherine, and I don't know. I think I've talked before in this book about knowing when my husband and I first got together, and I feel like his primary language was touch, and mine just definitely was not. And and that was one of the things, is feeling that resentment for that demand, that neediness from him, and the you know that whole aspect of it. So, and I did feel like, when I first got together, I was very much, this is what I'm supposed to do because I'm the partner, and at the time we weren't married. There's a whole nother thing that we can talk about on this chapter discusses cohabitating family or couples versus married couples. Well, but anyway, back to my topic of conversation with at the beginning of our relationship, it was a struggle because I felt like, okay, it was my responsibility as the woman partner to give whatever it is that, he wanted, because I had this belief in a fear, I had this fear slash belief that if I didn't do everything he wanted physically, that he was going to go someplace else and get it someplace else, and that would be the end of our marriage. And it was like a duty, and just that aspect of that expectation, I don't even know for sure that he was feeling like, he was expecting everything. I think that on his side of it, it was an insecurity that if he wasn't getting enough physical touch, then he was afraid I was giving it to someone else, So it's kind of like a catch-22, right? And, but it's interesting how our minds work with all of that. And how so much of it, I feel, is from what we're taught when we're younger, of what is supposed to be and how we're supposed to act, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all these beliefs. And, but yet in reality, for me, the big change came when I started working on my own personal development, because when I started working on my personal development and was getting past this whole, this is an expectation as a married person that I'm supposed to be this certain way, and I was able to instead focus on my desire to be affectionate to him versus my thought that I am supposed to be this dutiful wife who does what she's supposed to do, and I think it's a lot of it has to do with just changing your way of looking at things. Because like when he was talking about this woman who wasn't as touchy-feely because she didn't grow up in a touchy-feely family and all of that kind of thing, and then the husband is, and I kind of got this little tick in my mind when he said something relating to that, like, well, you need to do this, you need to figure it out. And that annoyed me, because I'm like, well, maybe you just both need to work on your own selves for a little while, and then you'll come back around naturally and be, because that's part of it too. Because, I feel like over the years, my husband has gained the confidence in our relationship and has gotten to the point where it's not such a need, like a fear need. I don't know. I don't even know if that's the right thing for it now. I don't feel like it's as important as what it used to be, and we have a stronger relationship because of it. So I don't know. Those are my thoughts at the moment. Anybody else want to jump in on all that? We can go in all kinds of directions with this.
No, I totally agree that a lot of these, even though, we all have our primaries and whatever, many of these are driven by insecurities. And so I totally agree with that it's not just, well, if you love this person, it's your duty to provide everything or whatever, I think it's, everybody's got to be working on themselves and figuring out why they, why is that their primary? Why? What has happened in their life that has driven that, or like it brings up, I do want to talk some about the cohabitation aspect. I was really shocked at those numbers that he brought up, the statistics about cohabitation. And I don't know that I can remember them, but it was something like the divorce rate is way, way higher with people who cohabitate versus people who are married. And the infidelity rate is way, way higher, especially for women. Like I think it was 8 times higher for women in a cohabitation situation as opposed to a married situation. I was really shocked at that. And I think that I don't understand why that is, but I haven't experienced the infidelity part as far as cohabitation, but I always thought that, living with somebody before I married them would help the situation, and it didn't. I can vouch to that. Like, I tried living with people before I married them, and it just seems like things changed when we got married. I don't know. They say that, and I always thought it was a lie, but from personal experience, I have to kind of say it does seem to follow through. I think that people are just really complicated, and there's so many things that can happen. Like, I'm sure if I hadn't had all of the sexual abuse and trauma and stuff in my life, I would be probably more open to physical touch. I mean, that just makes sense. But I wasn't really a physical touch. Well, it happened so young, it's hard to say. But I mean, I just don't remember ever being a physical touch kind of person anyway. So, I was raised in a family where that wasn't really the thing, and I thought it was interesting in the story in the book where hers isn't physical and her spouse's is. He starts her out by giving hugs to her parents. I think there's a huge difference between hugging your parents and physical interaction with your husband. Like, that did not follow through for me at all. I can hug my parents all day long. That doesn't mean I'm going to be any more touchy-feely with my husband. I mean, it's so I don't know about that. And I don't know, I mean, the way that this book is presented, it appears that you could learn all of these things, but I'm not so sure about that. I mean, I guess you can try to learn. I guess you can be open, to learning, and you can be closed to learning. But it's like smiling. I'm a smiler. I smile all the time. I smile when I'm happy. I smile when I'm sad. I smile when I'm pissed. Um, but you can tell when my smile is real and when it's not. So, or I'm pretty sure people can tell. Like, I can tell when somebody's smile is real or not, right? But so it seems to me like if it if whatever love language it is, if you're trying to fake it, like if mine was words of affirmation, which it's not, but if it was, and somebody was saying things to me, trying to accommodate that, but it wasn't sincere, I would feel that and know that and not like that, you know? So I don't know, this book confuses me a little bit. Like, we were talking a little bit before we started the recording. Like, I get it on one hand, and on the other hand, I don't know that fake it until you make it works here.
I agree. I don't think that the fake it until you make it works either. But what I will say is that if you can, I don't know, in my experience and with my husband, we've had some serious ups and downs in our relationship. And I feel like everything changed when I had done enough work on myself that I could focus on all of the good things about my relationship with my husband. Because for a long time, I was resentful of him for many different reasons that were all just lies. They were all in my head. It didn't have anything to do with him or what he was doing or what he wasn't doing or anything. And, it was all stuff that I made up in my head about our relationship that wasn't even real. And, that sounds like just kind of a blanket thing. There's so many aspects to all of it. But when I was able to get out of my own mumbo jumbo and get to the truth of what I feel like our relationship is now, then so much of that crap just, went away. But I feel like when we're trying to do something because we think we're just supposed to do it because that other person wants it, then it can't be real, because there's no truth in it. It's just a placation or you're doing it because you think you have to, and so it's not real. But yet, when you come from a place of love, like true, spiritual love, not just infatuation and not just because you've been together forever, not family love, not anything, but like a true inner spiritual love that radiates out of you when you allow it to, is that then when you do these things that that person appreciates, it is real and it feels real and it feels stronger. And, even if it's not your primary love language, it still can be real. Like when you were when you're talking about your mom and giving her a gift and realizing, okay, gifts what she really loves. You love your mom and you want to do something for her that she will appreciate, then you're not doing it because you think you have to. You're doing it because you love her and you realize this is what she's going to respond to the strongest. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I feel like more than anything, it all just depends on where you're coming from, because if you're coming from, a space of fear or a space of, well, that's where most of, everything unpleasant comes from. It's fear. It's all your insecurities and expectations and everything else. If it's coming from fear, then it's not, it's not going to feel good and it's going to feel unpleasant no matter what you do. And if it comes from a place of love, then it is going to be love no matter what it is that you do. So, so let's talk about this, like the cohabitation aspect of it. You want to talk about it, I kind of want to talk about it. And I think it's interesting when anyone brings up a study that was done, because in my opinion, studies are always biased in one way or another because they're trying to get a result of some sort. And I don't feel like they're really, what if they did these studies? What if they found couples that were, like half of the couples were just normal everyday couples that never worked on personal development, never anything, which is pretty much what I think. They just find a whole big old bunch of people and they just start doing studies on them. I think the average person doesn't really work on themselves. But what if they found half the couples that were working on themselves and the other half of the couples are just normal everyday average people? How would the results skew then? I mean, how would it be different? I think it would be significantly different, and or what if they made sure in a study to pull all kinds of different, cultures into the study of, you know, different religious backgrounds and different upbringings and different parts of the world, you know. I mean, are they just studying Americans, you know? Are they just studying Europeans? I think there'd be a difference there. But, you know, my husband and I, we lived together for, gosh, more than 2 years before we got married. And I don't feel like really anything changed when we got married. It was just like a piece of paper, you know, with signatures so we can file our taxes together as married, you know. And, you know, because in my mind, we were already married. We were living together. We were having sex. We had a kid, you know. We're married. That's what the definition of marriage is. It's not a piece of paper. But that's my opinion. That's my belief. Now, somebody else who has a completely different belief that if you're not married, then you're not really in a long-term relationship, or if you're not married, you're, you know, I don't know what, I'm sure there's tons of different ideas of what the difference between marriage and not marriage is, and how that can play into the relationship significantly, particularly if one adult has a different feeling on the difference between marriage and not marriage than the other person does. So I think that's kind of one of the things about this book. You know, I think it's a great book, and it brings a lot of things to light that we can talk about, and maybe makes us aware of things that we weren't aware of. But there's so many aspects to every person and every relationship and all the dynamics that go into that, because it's not just about these 5 love languages. It's about your beliefs. It's about your life expectations. It's about what you expect to get out of a relationship in the first place. You know, I mean, there's so much, because if you can't, you know, and I think a lot of times people put so much expectation on that other person to fulfill them and make them happy, and then that person doesn't meet up with their expectations in some way, and then they're not happy, or they, you know, they have something like with me and my husband. You know, I had all this mumbo jumbo in my head that, you know, he wasn't living up to, or he wasn't measuring up to, or, you know, I was upset because it didn't go this certain way, you know, and I had so much miserableness in my own self because of it. And once I was able to like get over that, you know, get past it, realize what was causing it, realize that was just all the mumbo jumbo I kept telling myself, and I started telling myself different stuff that was better and happier, then I'm happier and we're in a better relationship. And I could easily, at any moment, I could switch the switch over the other direction and start looking at all the things that are not great. And then my relationship would go right back in the tubes again, you know? So, and it's the same way with everything. In my experience, it's been the same way with everything. I can look at any situation, no matter what it is, and if I start telling myself all the unpleasant shit about it, then I start feeling like shit, and I start being mad, and I start being resentful, and I start being angry, and all of these things. Or if I look at this and I go, here's all these great things, then I'm like happy about it. There's just, no, it all is in, God, it comes back to that same book. I know I'm running on a tangent, and I apologize, but this is what's coming to mind. You know, we talked about the book, What to Say When You Talk to Yourself by Shad Helmstetter. And that was like, it's not really a miracle book in my life, but it was like a big book that like really smacked me in the face, because when we were going through it was when I found out that my daughter was seriously thinking about moving to South Carolina with her boyfriend and his family. And I instantaneously had all of these hatred thoughts towards his family because they were taking my baby away. You know, I had all this crap that was going on in my head, and how could they do that? And I hate that boy, and he's doing this to my daughter, and you know, all this crap. And it was making me angry and upset. And then when we read that book and it said, you know, listen to what you're saying to yourself and change it, then I just wrote out like 6 or 8 different sentences that I was going to say to myself about his family and about him. And that changed everything. I mean, it was like a miracle. And it's so ridiculous that something so simple can make such a huge difference in our lives. It's just a matter of how what we're freaking saying to ourselves in our brain about any given situation. So, okay, I'm done with my tangent. Somebody else jump out and say something.
I guess we're both still busy. Yeah, that was a good book. What to say, what you say to yourself is so important, and what you're focusing on is so important. I'm glad that your relationship didn't change between living together and being married. I know, like my daughter, and I call him my son-in-law because they live together and they have children. Like, to me, they're married, but officially they're not. I don't feel like theirs would change either. I mean, it would shock me if it did. Of course, it shocked me when it changed mine too. So I don't know, but yeah, I think you're right as far as with any of these things. It doesn't matter what your love language is if all you're focused on is that your partner isn't providing whatever that love language is to you, and that's all you focus on. Then you're going to be miserable. And that there's a neediness there. There's something about neediness that rubs me. I don't know what it is. Like, and I berate myself over it, actually, because I mean, people are human, and I don't think I am, but most people are, and they have, human needs, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and yet there's a part of me that just sees it as a weakness and a neediness, and it irritates me, and that's just being real there. But and I don't understand it, about myself, and I don't understand why I don't have some of those needs. But I think I'm just from a different planet or something. I don't know.
You always say that, and I totally disagree with you. I don't think that you're from another planet, or I don't know. Maybe in some way we are. Maybe we're just on some other planet in a virtual reality game, and we're just playing this human game just to see what it's all about. It's like complete immersion game. I don't know. I think that will be interesting. It'll be a big laugh if when I'm done with this life, if that's really what's going on. I'm going to be so mad that I didn't play this game a whole lot more aggressively. But if that is the case, then next time around maybe I will. Who knows? I don't know. And but no, I agree. I see it a lot of times too. But I also I don't know. I get what you're saying as far as, the neediness in other people and all of that kind of thing. And yeah, it does. It rubs me wrong too. And for a long time, it was more irritating than what it is to me now in this point in time in my life. And I guess it was, before, because it was like, I was feeling like, God, there's all these people and they have so many demands on me. And I only am this one person and I can only do so much, And I had a lot of feelings of, I should be this and I should be that and ought to, blah, 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 these shoulda, woulda, coulda, oughta, whatever you want to call it. Because of all these other people's needy, like my mother, and with, my sister and my husband and everything, and of course, with my kids, I didn't feel it because they're my kids and they're just like that. I'm automatically do what my kids need, and but when I started kind of being more, I don't know, what it was the book Zero Limits by Joe Vitale. And he talked about taking responsibility for every single thing that you experience in your entire life, no matter what it is. And even if it's happening on the other side of the world, as somehow or another, if you're experiencing it, then you're attached to it in some, even if some tiny minuscule way. You're either doing something or not doing something that is a result in your life. And so when I started that journey down the take 100% responsibility for everything, no matter what it is, and it's just like I owned my life, I owned everything, then I also started looking at other people of whatever's going on in their life. That's theirs. I don't have to deal with it. It's not my thing. I don't have to care. I can send them love knowing that whatever they're experiencing, somehow it's connected to me because I'm responsible for everything I perceive. But then at the same time, I can look at everybody else and say, I'm the center of my universe and I'm taking responsibility for it. You're the center of your universe and you can take responsibility for it. It's not my responsibility to make sure you're feeling the way you want to feel. That's your responsibility. It's not mine. And so that relieves like this huge weight off of my shoulders in terms of what all this shoulda, coulda, ought to, blah, 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 for, towards or around or related to other people. And even when I can see another person in my life who has whatever expectations of me that I'm supposedly not living up to, I just can be like, well, that's your bag. Deal with it. I'm sorry you feel that way. That sucks for you because now you're experiencing it. You're thinking about it. You're stressing yourself out about it. You're all this stuff, but I'm not thinking about anything you're thinking about. And so it doesn't affect me. I'm like, I do what I feel is right for me in relation to our relationship. I take responsibility for what what I expect out of it, what I want to get out of it, what I want to put into it, et cetera, et cetera. And, and I'm happier because I can say that. And, I don't know. So people don't rub me as irritatingly as what they used to because I can just let them be themselves and do their own thing and be upset or not upset or whatever. And it doesn't affect me. And I think that, that the part where you're sitting here saying, I feel like an alien or I'm not human, as I think that the reality is that when you can be that way and look and it's like, this is your own problem, it's not my problem, is that people think there is something wrong with you because you're not feeling or acting or responding or blah, 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 blah to what they hope that you're going to do or expect you to do or whatever. And you don't get caught up in all that drama, I mean, you don't get caught up in it, then it doesn't cause you pain and anxiety, then there must be something wrong with you, right? You must be an alien. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had someone ask me, well, I want a list of, all the things I can do to make you happy. And I'm like, you can't make me happy. Only I can make me happy. Doesn't matter what you do or don't do. It's my response, whether I'm happy or not happy. And yeah, that's not understood by a lot of people. I don't know. It just, yeah. But it's true, because you can look at people who have, nothing, who are very, very happy. And then you look at people who supposedly have everything that everybody thinks would make them happy, and they're the most miserable people in the world, So it's really, happiness has nothing to do with external circumstances, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree. And I keep, in my life things keep coming up, all this little stuff will come up, and it just makes me recognize the different areas of where my thought processes go in that situation and how it affects my emotional ups and downs and all of that kind of thing. Now, I will admit there is like a part of my, I don't know, I go in these kind of waves where I'll have these emotions come over me and I won't be able to identify thoughts that go along with them. And, sometimes I just feel down and I don't know why, and I'm not thinking anything. I actually will sit there and think, why am I feeling so down? What is it that's on my mind? What's coming up inside of me? I don't know what that is. Now, I know we've had discussions before where maybe it's that the ability to feel the emotional roller coaster of the universe, or of the people that we're closest to or whatever. And, so maybe that's part of it. But for the most part, 99.99% of all of my emotional stuff, I can identify the thought that is causing it. And if I can identify that thought, I can change that thought, and then I can change that emotion without, like that. It just doesn't, it's, now there are times I will admit, I'm not focused on what am I thinking. I'm just thinking stuff. And when I get on that tangent of I have all these thoughts and they just are coming and, and all this, it's coming at me, then, I'll be really emotional. I'll have sometimes when I get really stressed out, it's because all this stuff is bombarding me and then all the thoughts I'm having around it. And then it's just happening and I'm not separating myself a little bit and seeing what's going on so I can, I'm getting better at that. But, I am human, even if some people might not think so, and so I have that emotional stuff that goes on, and I think that's part of it too. It's just, we have it, and if we can recognize it, then we can work on it. If we don't recognize it, then it causes this emotional insanity. And then if we recognize we're having emotional insanity, then we can work on that. And then maybe next time we won't have as much, I don't know. Sandy, have you been listening into the whole conversation, or did you just jump on? Where are you at? What do you think?
I'm just here. I haven't read the chapter. I heard the last thing you were saying about Catherine's not an alien. And yeah, my thoughts on that were that, it's a lot of people get stuck in these cycles, I guess, where they're, I don't know, it's like these attachments and, not acting from a more conscious, aware place. And I think that's, Catherine she's aware, she's conscious, and so that's why it feels alien, because most of the world is not functioning from that place of, I create my own happiness. And a lot of people, I'd say majority of people, look for happiness in another person. So it can totally feel alien, and those are things that I'm actually seeing in myself. I actually was on a date last night, and we were talking about these weird terms in dating now, like ghosting and curving and gaslighting, and there's all these new terms in the new age of what people do when they're dating. They'll just disappear, or they'll text to just keep you around but not text too much, or they'll love bomb you in the beginning and just throw all this love out there and then disappear. And so there's all these weird terms now. I'm this is so weird. What happens to just organically meeting people out in the world? So it just, and a lot of it just seems like these games people playing for their ego or their instant gratification thing, which I think is a big thing these days too. Especially in online dating, is you can just swipe now, and it's okay. I meet somebody and it doesn't work out right away, then forget that one. I'll go back on and swipe away till I meet the next one. And there's this this feeling of like people looking for this instant gratification thing, and if there's any discord or anything that needs to be worked on between in the relationship, it's like, well, no, I'll just find the next one. And it's a bizarre world in dating these days. Bizarre, really. And I had stopped for a while this online dating for a few months, and I'm like, if it happens organically in the world, awesome. Like, like the good old days, just let it happen when it happens. And met this amazing guy a few weeks ago, and he sort of love bombed me. But when we, like, totally connected when we hung out, amazing, wonderful, but he's going through divorce and all this stuff, so he realized that he wasn't ready. So it was sad for me, I really liked him, but then someone was like, just get back on the dating app and you can, get over it quicker. So I did. And met this new amazing guy, but he's more of a friend guy, but it's cool. So it's a whole different world of dating. It's like sometimes exhausting. So that's my little bit for now.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. I think it would be fascinating and yet tiring, like what you're saying is, yeah, I don't know if I could do it. I don't know if it would be worth it, and maybe that's what people are thinking, is all of the stuff that comes up with me, and I meet this new person and then all the stuff comes up. Is it really even worth it? I don't know. It's tiring.
The good thing about it is I'm learning a lot about myself through it all. Like, that's my mentor in relationships is about just go out, have fun, meet guys, and because you can use it as a growth process for yourself. So that's how I'm seeing it. And, like things that Catherine is saying are things that I'm learning. It's like no one can create my happiness, and I'm happy no matter what. If I meet somebody, awesome. If I don't, cool. If they become a friend, awesome. If we don't get along at all, cool. And it's really I'm using it as my own internal growth process. So that aspect of it is really cool. Like, okay, and getting just over, going out to meet somebody at first, it's like sometimes like, what am I doing? Like, this is weird. Like, you don't know who you're meeting. But it's also, I've been seeing how really intuitive I am. Like, I really can feel somebody's vibe before I meet them and know whether I will maybe like them a little bit or get along with them or not, and whether they're trustworthy or a cuckoo bird. And I've noticed that I am attracting people who are like me, and who are at the same, whatever level, I don't know what to call it, but because that's my intention and that's my vibe and that's my energy. So I'm attracting like quality guys. So that for me, I'm like, wow, this is cool. Like, to just see that too, because I spent years attracting not quality guys. So it helps me see my growth too, where I'm at, like, oh wow, and really knowing, having that sense of who this person is even before I meet them is interesting to see that I'm pretty good at it. So I'm off topic completely. What are we even talking about? Like, touchy-feely language, which I love, but it's not my number one language. But I do know when I envision, I do these Neville Goddard kind of things where you envision feel it real kind of situations and really feel the feeling that it's, for me, that maybe it's not so much touch, but just that feeling of being held is always something in my visions. But yeah, it's definitely not I forget if it's my fourth or fifth love language on the list there. physical touch. I got to read this chapter.
Yeah, we've been all over the place today with our topic. I mean, we started with the chapter and then we veered off into La La Land for a while, or I don't know if you'd call it La La Land, just our own, what my own private weirdness. I don't know, Catherine's and everything else. We just ended up all over the place. So it's been a good chat. And I think that sometimes these are the best chats is when we really aren't even on the exact topic. So it's all good. That's the way I look at it. There's Bill. Hey, Bill. He's got time now. He wants to add some info to us.
Yeah.
Have you been listening in this whole time to all of our rants and craziness?
I sure have.
Awesome.
It's been interesting.
I can hardly hear you.
Is this better? Is it better?
A little bit. I think you have a poor signal. You're kind of choppy. Oh, now
Okay. Can you hear me now?
there you go.
Is this any better?
Yeah.
I'm at the Y, and so it's hard to get a good signal. Anyhow, I was listening, and some of the things I wanted to add in, I don't know where this was appropriate, but you're talking about laws, and that's a decision you get up to make every day. You can change that decision anytime, whether you're going to love this person or not. And fortunately, my wife likes to choose yes. And I've been reading another book. It's called Unstoppable. And right now we're talking about your own personal philosophies, what's really deep down inside of you. And again, that kind of gets around all these various love languages, but they all stem from where your philosophy is. Where that's going or taking us, I don't know. But, I just wanted to throw those seeds out of, you have to do some introspection of your own philosophy of how you live. And this guy, the author, had about 3 or 4 or 5 pages of his various philosophies. So I think this kind of goes, what we were all talking about today. How to get into it anymore, I don't know, but I would suggest if anybody has a chance to look at the book Unstoppable. But anyhow, that's some of the thoughts of, and it's interesting to hear a lot of the women talking about, touch is definitely not their top priority, whereas with guys it tends to be more. So, a greater percentage of them happen to be men as opposed to women. And we all men would like our women to be a lot more touchy-feely, but that doesn't happen. And through time and through your marriage, all of these love languages can change. I know mine has changed a bit on, the touchy-feely stuff. So, you accommodate your partner and live with your partner as best as you can, to accommodate where they're coming from, and they change also. So it's kind of a moving target that you both try to work on. So that's some of my stuff. And I'll shut up and let other people say what they're going to do.
Thanks for jumping on and sharing, Bill. I appreciate that. I think something came up for me when you were talking about the differences between, the average man versus the average woman. And at the beginning, Catherine was talking about how, giving lots of love and affection, physical love and affection to babies. And we kind of touched on that, when children that get a lot of physical touch are better developed, or they have studies that say that's so, is the children that are hugged and physically loved are they have a different they grow up and they're better. Anyway, my thought process on that was that, okay, once children reach a certain age, boys versus girls, I feel like in a lot of situations that girls, they get a lot of physical like hugs and such from their family, whereas boys are kind of like, oh, you're a man, I'm just going to give you a pat on the back or whatever now. And so it makes me wonder if the reasoning behind a fair amount of this discrepancy between men and women is because when we were younger as women, we got more physical touch, and so we don't feel like it's as important as then boys maybe didn't get as much from their family or parents or whatever, and so they need it more. I don't know. Just that was just kind of a random thought that came into my head in terms of, you know, why there's a big discrepancy. But I think it could go either way, because I know there's a lot of women that feel that touch is the one of the most important, and men can feel the exact opposite. So I don't know, that was just the thought that came to my head on that aspect of it. Maybe. Of course, we always talk about, you know, how our beliefs are, you know, like you said, philosophies about life and the way things are supposed to be play such a big role in what we expect in our lives now. So I think that it all kind of plays together there. Well, we're right at the top of the hour, guys. Everybody kind of share a final thought on today's discussion, and then we can wrap up.
Even now, as an older gentleman, I still have a hard time. Do I hug my son, or do I just?
We're having a hard time hearing you, Bill.
So,
There you go.
you know, I have a hard decision. I have a decision to make. Do I hug another man, or do I just shake his hand? And that's always a question that I have every time I connect with somebody that's, you know, of course, just new. I'll shake his hand, but beyond that, whereas women, they can even hug a person that they haven't really met before, you know, and get away with it easier. And then in the workplace, oh, that's a big another thing. But anyhow, that's, you know, I still have some of those questions. Just throwing that out as a man side.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it, Samantha. And I was wondering the same, you know, is it that? Is it testosterone? Like, I think it's a combination of a lot of things. But I also think it's an expectation that someone else needs to meet my needs to make me happy. And I think that's a false expectation. I think people need to make themselves happy. And I don't think they should expect other people to do all these things for them to satisfy them. I just don't. And especially if it's something that they have to fake their way through or whatever. Like, I get completely incensed when I speak to women who are in their 60s and 70s, never had an orgasm, and yet they've had sex with their husband every night to satisfy him, and they have received nothing from it other than they're still married because they fulfilled their duty. Like, it just pisses me off. It really does. And I don't I just don't think, I think everybody is faking their way through a lot of stuff. And that's one of the things that I've learned being an Uber driver, actually, because I hear the conversations in my back seat. And there's a lot of miserable people out there that are faking their way through things. And there's like, people have so many expectations. I hear, you know, people discussing their expectations of other people in my back seat. And I just want to turn around and say, hey, that's not their duty to do that for you, or to, you know, like, you need to learn how to fulfill yourself and make yourself happy, and not rely on everybody else to do, you know, all those things and fulfill those things for you. So, and obviously you know, sometimes I can interject a little bit in a conversation, but most of the time I just keep my mouth shut and kind of listen. But it's unfortunate, you know, the different ways that we do treat our children, male versus female, and not in all families, of course, but I mean, in general, in society, like you said, you know, the girls are more likely to be hugged or loved on, and the guys just patted on the back or whatever, good job, or you know, and how detrimental that can be now, you know, knowing these love languages. For like Bill, if his primary is physical touch, then if he, and I'm not saying you did, Bill, but if you grew up in a family with that kind of ways, you know, then to feel so neglected in a way, by not receiving that, and then yeah, maybe that does have a great impact on going forward and what is expected out of relationships. Um, and then it also got into like what's appropriate touch for different populations of people, you know, coworkers versus other people, and la-di-da, because of all the sexual harassment cases. And that's a whole nother discussion, but I don't know. I want people to be able to be real. And when you're cohabitating or you're married to somebody, you know, I think both people's needs are important. And I don't think that, I mean, it appears to be all about sacrifice. And I just wish that it didn't have to be that way. I just wish that there were ways for people to live with each other, um, and feel fulfilled and feel loved without people having to um, sacrifice and do things they don't want to do, and fake it till they make it. You know, I just wish that relationships could be more real for everybody.
Any final thoughts, Sandy, before we wrap up?
No, I'm good. Sorry, I was distracted on my phone there for a bit. I have another patient.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Good to see you guys and hear you guys. Catherine, we don't see your face.
All right. Yeah, you know, when you were talking, Catherine, you know, it hurts my heart, you know, just the same thing is seeing these people in so much pain and realizing that they're causing it all to themselves, you know. And I was watching this one show not too long ago. It's just like a silly show, but there's this one character in there where her religious background is that one where you know, you cut yourself or you hit yourself in the back to, I don't know what the purpose of it is. Some kind of, you know, like, I don't know, because you're bad, you have to hit yourself or something, you know, and she has all these scars on her back and everything from all of this pain and stuff she's inflicted on herself. And you know, and it's obvious to everybody, okay, just stop hitting yourself, you know, and you won't have that anymore, right? And I feel like that's what I see when I see other people and they're struggling in their relationships, and the things that they're struggling with are, it's all the stuff that these expectations and these beliefs and everything about how things are supposed to be, and how that other person's supposed to fulfill them, and they're just not living up to it. And it hurts my heart knowing that they can just stop hitting themselves, you know. I mean, there, I don't know, there's the this one song that comes on the radio. I listen to this country station a lot, and this song, and she's just complaining in this song about how he just doesn't take her downtown anymore. And I'm like, good God, woman, take yourself downtown. I'm like, I know it's a silly thing, but it's just like, I'm like, no wonder so much of our people are so, caught up in this whole your husband has to do everything for you or keep on doing whatever, or your boyfriend just isn't cutting it because he's not bringing you flowers anymore, whatever, and I'm just, it just frustrates me because, here we are, we're trying to work on ourselves and trying to, uplift ourselves and realize that we've caused so much of our misery in our lives, and yet I can see all these other people still doing it to themselves, and I'm like, gosh, I'm sorry. I just want to give you a hug and tell you to stop doing that to you, and but then we hear these songs on the radio, and it just reinforces this baloney with, how all these expectations that we're putting out on other people and expecting them to make us happy, and it's just, yeah, anyway. I was watching some other old TV show or movie or something. I say old, it was probably from back in the 70s, and I don't know, it was just some of the things that were going on in that show were making me realize, well, no wonder we have this feeling of we're supposed to do this or supposed to do that. It's because we kept watching this stupid show back in the 70s, and it taught us how to behave that way, So anyway, I guess I have said a lot of everything I needed to say today, and hopefully somebody found it useful, and we didn't go too far off in a tangent on any one way or another, and we covered enough for this chapter. Maybe just felt it was entertaining. If you liked what we talked about, then you like how we ramble on about randomness, then click like on this video, share it with your friends, come and join us on a meeting. Maybe you want to ramble on about who knows what when we're supposed to be talking about something else. I don't know. If you do, come join us. You can meet up with us at mindsetmasterycollective.com. That's the link that'll take you directly over to our Facebook group. You can jump in there and thanks, Sandy. I was trying, yeah. Anyway, have a great, awesome, amazing weekend, and we'll see you next time on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye for now.